Discover the incredible moment when a female CEO asks a single dad mechanic to sleep in his car. It was the kind of rainy night that made the world outside look like a smeared painting, and Jake stood in the dim light of his late father's garage, his hands grease-stained and weary. At 35, every day felt like a test, the relentless flow of bills whispering uncertainties into his ear, the responsibilities of fatherhood weighing his heart down. As he wiped sweat from his brow, he couldn't shake the question, was he really providing the future Mia deserved? The memories of his father's steadfast integrity surged back, mixing guilt with determination. Every day in the garage felt like an echo of the values he was meant to uphold. Did fueling the past help create a future that sparkled for Mia? He was in the middle of changing the oil on an aging sedan when headlights spliced through the rain. A sleek car sputtered to a halt just outside the door. A moment later, Claire stepped into the light, her carefully measured steps revealing the discomfort gnawing at her composure. She was on a business trip for a corporate retreat, her tailored suit contrasting sharply with the greasy atmosphere of the garage. As she approached, Jake felt an odd tug of curiosity mixed with a kind of uncertainty that came with drawing close to someone entirely different yet startlingly similar in unspoken ways. Both felt the burden of expectations, hers more corporate, his tied to fatherhood. Before he knew it, they were knee-deep in conversation. Claire spoke of her strained relationship with her father, the shared disappointment hanging heavy, and another piece of her facade cracked open like an old tin can. In turn, Jake recounted his daily struggles amidst the chaos of bills and Mia's needs. He could see her eyes reflecting a blend of empathy and confusion. She recognized his battle. But with every moment, the cloudy weight of her corporate obligations loomed closer, taunting her newfound connection. Was it worth it? Did she really belong in this rigid corporate environment that grimaced with sameness? Before long, the rain beat relentlessly against the garage roof, matching the pounding in Jake's chest as Claire turned to him, drawing in a shaky breath. "Can I sleep in your car?" His heart leapt, caught off guard by the boldness of her request. Stunned, hesitation seeped into his response as visions of what their lives represented swirled together, integrity versus ambition, warmth versus isolation. There was excitement lacing through the uncertainty, but could they truly dive into such vulnerability? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they climbed into the car, the dampness seeped through their bones, the growing tension weaving an intimate blanket around them. Claire wrestled with the pressure of expectations. Would she push through the suffocating hierarchy at work, or risk breaking free and redefining what success meant? Jake, too, grappled with the implications of letting someone in, feeling his facade of strength thinning as he yearned for connection. Did allowing himself this moment compromise everything he had built for Mia, or could it open a path no one anticipated? Their souls flickered in the dim light of the vehicle, uncertainty swirling around them like the rain outside. Just as dawn threatened to break, casting light on their doubts, they both sensed this unexpected encounter could redefine their futures in ways neither dared to fully imagine. The chill of the night intermingled with a warmth that felt both foreign and intoxicating as they sat awkwardly in the cramped confines of Jake's car. The hum of water against metal punctuated their silence, creating a rhythm that tethered them to reality, but also to something fleeting. Claire shifted in her seat, her eyes darting around, catching fragments of Jake's life, old grease-streaked tools, remnants of Mia's toys, and a folded paper with a calendar and cartoon doodles that contrasted starkly with the polished image she maintained in the corporate world. "You know," Jake finally said, breaking the suffocating silence, "I didn't plan to share my struggles tonight." His voice was a half-chuckle, half-sigh, revealing the paradox of vulnerability and strength. "And you definitely didn't plan on this detour." Claire turned to him, her expression unreadable, but he recognized that familiar flicker of understanding. "Then let's just be honest for a while. No corporate facades, she proposed, her tone almost daring, as if seeking clarity in a sea of uncertainty. Jake nodded, leaning back against the headrest, feeling the tension in his chest ease slightly. It feels easier to hide behind my work. Every day is just spinning wrenches, fixing engines. Mia keeps me grounded, but he hesitated, searching for the right words that eluded him. It's tough, that pressure to be everything for her. It's like, am I enough? Claire's gaze softened, her own defenses momentarily lowered. I get that. The expectations at work twisted into my own desires, and now I question every choice. Success has become synonymous with sacrificing parts of myself. I can't tell if I'm climbing or just running on a treadmill. Her voice held a bit of melancholy, as if articulating the feelings both had kept buried. As rain pounded against the windshield, a thought struck Jake with sudden clarity. What if we stopped measuring worth by expectations? What if we allowed ourselves to dream, to redefine what comes next? I've always admired the way you hold your ground in a room full of suits. Claire's posture shifted slightly, curiosity piquing as she leaned into his words. You mean break the mold? That feels risky. What are you suggesting? A fire ignited in Jake. What if we both took the courage to seek something genuine? I help Mia with her science fair projects, brainstorming ideas together. It's the moments that matter, not the end result. Maybe your dreams shouldn't just be confined to the boardroom. She pondered his proposition, eyes narrowing slightly with contemplation. Here sat Claire, a successful CEO, feeling the pangs of doubt and ambition, her soul intersecting with his struggle as a father. They were two individuals navigating through a labyrinth of expectations, yet bound by their ambitions for something more than achievement. I don't know how to trust that, she said quietly, but Jake noticed a flicker of hope surfacing in her certainty. Can one trust that breaking away from the norms can lead to a better outcome? A lingering silence enveloped them, each lost in their thoughts while the rain transformed into a rhythmic melody, echoing Jake's accelerating heart. Jake searched for the words, hoping they could nestle deep within their mutual vulnerabilities. Could this be the catalyst for personal growth, not just a temporary escape from burdens? All I know is that we have to confront what holds us back. Find that fine line between ambitions and authenticity. I have no road map, but I'm willing to encourage you to explore your own path if you'll let me, he spoke, striving to offer her a glimmer of possibility in the darkness. Jake could sense something shifting in Claire, her eyes revealing a blend of apprehension and promise. It was as though the weight of their worlds starting pressing jointly on the scales of a larger realization. But before they could venture deeper, the low hum of a car engine from the street outside punctured their sanctuary. Jake's stomach tightened with trepidation. What if someone sees us like this? He whispered, the reality of their worlds creeping back in. Her gaze met his, a determination flickering through the uncertainty clouding their moment. Then we face whatever comes next together. With the droplets cascading down the glass, in that moment, Jake felt a newfound resolve coursing through him. Could this be the moment they both reconciled ambition and authenticity? Would they both take steps toward tearing down the barriers they had unknowingly constructed, or would the pressures of their individual lives pull them back into the shadows? The steady drone of the rain outside provided a backdrop to a growing tension within Jake. He felt the weight of Claire's determination pressing into him, every glance between them charged with unspoken promises. Yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead sliced through him like the chill of the night air, whispering reminders of their realities. Together, he repeated, testing the word on his tongue, each syllable filled with the weight of commitment. What did together really mean? Did it extend to risking their well-established lives? His usual internal monologue of caution flared up, battling against a flicker of eagerness ignited by Claire's presence. She held a power to inspire vulnerability he'd rarely encountered, and the unfamiliarity of that feeling both thrilled and terrified him. Let us map this out, then, Claire suggested abruptly, breaking his introspection and pulling him back. How do we start redefining ourselves? I mean really redefining, not just a corporate tweak, or a change in title. Her eyes sparkled with a palpable energy, igniting a fire in Jake. She was ready to embark on a journey of authenticity. An idea surfaced inside him, accompanied by a rush of purpose that made his heart race. What if we each take on a project outside our usual scope? Something that would force us to confront our fears and push us to explore new territories? He leaned forward, invigorated. I could take on a community project. Something hands-on where I can use what I know to give back. Claire's brows furrowed in concentration. That could work. And maybe I could step into that vulnerable space I avoid, mentoring younger women in business. It's something I've always thought about but never acted on. But it feels safer to stick to what you know, right? Jake challenged, the words hanging between them. What happens when we lean into discomfort? Yes, she proclaimed, eyes alight with a mixture of excitement and fear. The discomfort of being seen or failing. But what if I do mentor someone and they go far beyond my expectations? Isn't it scarier to think I stagnated? Jake struggled with this new frontier. He had built his life around practicalities and tangible results, fixing machines with his hands, ensuring Mia was provided for. The complexities of mentorship and emotional support felt alien, yet invigorating. What if I fail? What if I can't give them what they need? He found himself mumbling, caught in the potential pitfalls. Claire reached out, placing a hand on his forearm, grounding him in the moment. But failing means you've put yourself out there. You care. That's what matters. Her touch was electric, sparking something deep within. And you can't measure the impact you have until you're willing to try. Amid the uncertainty, a realization flickered in his mind. He was not just a mechanic, not simply a father to Mia. He was a teacher as well. Maybe there was something to be learned from this intersection of their lives. He could offer more than just mechanical expertise. He could inspire others, much like Claire sparked ambition within him. Jake's heart thudded louder, a rush of anticipation coursing through him. What if he could challenge other fathers like himself? Encourage them to engage with their children in meaningful ways, to be more than the sum of their lives. That notion triggered fresh doubt. Was he capable of leading such a charge? Let us both draw up a plan, maybe goals to execute by next month. We meet each week to check in, Claire suggested, her voice alive with enthusiasm. Okay, Jake replied cautiously. But what if we set ourselves some stretch goals? Goals that push us into unknown territories. Claire's expression was intense. Then we hold each other accountable. The failures, the successes, everything. The certainty in her voice matched the thrum of determination within him. For the first time in months, Jake envisioned a future that felt vibrant rather than apprehensive. A future where both he and Claire, against the tumult of their lives, thrived together, personal rewards transcending corporate achievements. But what choices lay in wait for them on this precarious path? What might emerge as they both dared to be vulnerable with the world standing in the shadows? As these questions lingered in his mind, Jake knew the rain outside had forged a bond, a promise to pursue authenticity while combating their constraining fears together. With renewed purpose ablaze in his heart, he turned to Claire, eyes wide with realization and dread alike. Are we really ready for this? In that charged moment, the world outside faded, leaving only the resolve in their hearts as they prepared to take the first leap into the unknown. Would they both embrace the challenges ahead or retreat into the safety of familiarity? The decision awaited them like a crossroads on an uncharted map. The rain drummed steadily against the window, a relentless reminder of the swirling uncertainties Jake faced. He studied Claire's face, illuminated by the dim light of the room, searching for assurance, some kind of signal that their plans had merit beyond fleeting ambition. The anticipation in his chest tightened like a steel coil, both exhilarating and suffocating. Let us set a date for these goals, Claire insisted, her energy undiminished despite the pressures looming between them. We should start now. Make it real. Jake nodded, though a lump formed in his throat. He had always preferred the clarity of mechanical blueprints over the abstract nature of dreams and aspirations. This wasn't just about him anymore. It involved stepping beyond the roles he had crafted so carefully. His life revolved around steady routines, yet here he was flirting with the unknown. Okay, by next month, he agreed, and immediately felt a pang of fear about what commitment would require of him. Jake leaned back, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. Let us be specific about what we want to achieve. My project, engaging fathers in the community, sharing bonds and knowledge with their children, he said, testing his own words for authenticity. Did he truly believe he could make that happen? Claire's spirit radiated as she listened intently, her eyes dancing with understanding. Wonderful. And mentorship for me focused on empowering young women to own their narratives in business. She paused, as if summoning strength. I'll be transparent with them about my journey, my fears. It has to begin from a place of vulnerability. As they sketched out their respective visions, Jake felt a burgeoning sense of clarity. But as the excitement built, a darker shadow loomed within him, whispering fear. What if he faltered in his role? What if his efforts fell flat? The idea of standing before a group of fathers, sharing his experiences, felt daunting. His mind wandered to the fathers he knew, some emotionally absent, others overwhelmed by daily life, just like he used to be. What if they feel like I'm a fraud? What if I can't connect with them? The questions thrummed in his mind, each one battering against his uncertainty. Wouldn't you have your voice? Claire's voice broke through his spiral of doubt. You know more than you think. Authenticity cuts through pretense. Jake absorbed her words. They hung in the air, potent and charged. For the first time, he envisioned the potential impact of his involvement. What if he found a way to create a bridge for those fathers to step forward? The thought was like a spark, igniting hope wrapped in worry. Taking a reluctant step toward action, he reached for a discarded notepad on the table, the back of it riddled with grease stains, a testament to his mechanical world. He began scribbling ideas, words pouring out of him like the rain on the roof. Host a workshop, he wrote. Fathers share their experiences, safe space for growth. Allow for mistakes. Each stroke of the pen translated anxiety into energy, catalyzing his resolve. See? Claire leaned closer, her presence charging the air. You're already creating a framework. Use your own experiences failing, learning, tell them it's okay. He paused, lips pressed together, the implications of her encouragement unraveling within him. Every misstep he'd taken in assuming roles and responsibilities could reshape this new venture. He could empower others to define success beyond societal constraints. As the rain slowed, Jake's fingers began to tremble with excitement. This was the precipice of change. But change rarely unfolded without its trials. He wrestled with the realization that true growth involved confronting deeply rooted insecurities and the risk of external judgment. What if I truly step into this, and I'm not cut out for it? Jake questioned, vulnerability clinging to his voice. Then at least you'll know, Claire assured him, and that knowledge will propel you forward. Look at how far you've already come by just considering this. With every word, Claire dismantled the barriers Jake had erected around his fears. He still teetered on the edge of self-doubt, but the palpable connection they shared summoned a deepening courage rooted in accountability, truth, and the promise of personal growth. Let us do this, he finally said, his voice steady and resolute. No turning back. As Jake and Claire exchanged determined smiles, a new chapter unfurled before them. He felt the tides turning within. This journey was not solely theirs. It held the potential to redefine identities. But as they began mapping the next steps of their respective projects, the heaviness of the road ahead loomed larger. How would they handle the inevitable challenges, the possible failures and setbacks? What revelations awaited them on this path of vulnerability? Jake's heart raced, knowing they had only just begun to confront the storms within. Jake spent the next week immersed in planning his workshop, each day layered with excitement interspersed with shards of anxiety. The combination was intoxicating, a heady blend of purpose and fear. He transformed a small corner of his garage into an impromptu studio, cluttered with tools and half-finished projects. He hung a whiteboard on the wall to outline his ideas, hoping to chart a course through his uncertainty. The noise of his mechanical world faded, replaced by echoes of his own thoughts as he contemplated themes and activities. Connect, he wrote, underlining it twice. Share stories. He closed his eyes and envisioned himself standing before a group of fathers, just as he had imagined it with Claire. But doubt flickered in the periphery. Would he connect with them? Would they see him as someone who had wrestled with similar struggles, or simply a stranger throwing around empty platitudes? With each passing day, the doubts grew entwined with determination. He found himself recalling moments from his own childhood times spent bonding with his father, moments shaped by laughter, and those blanketed in tension. Jake's phone buzzed on the workbench, pulling him from his reflection. It was a message from Claire, checking in. Her unwavering enthusiasm seeped into his screen, reassuring him in a way he hadn't anticipated. He typed back quickly. The ideas are flowing. Just need to nail the execution. Execution. The word weighed heavily. How could he ensure that what he created would resonate? Jake knew he needed more than just a framework. He craved connection, authenticity. He stared at the workshop plans and saw the potential, but also the growing chasm of fear about what lay ahead. Later that week, he decided to test his ideas by speaking with friends. A casual dinner formed the perfect setting for feedback, an evening of burgers and laughter among close companions who shared snippets of their fatherhood experiences. Jake brought up the workshop concept, gauging reactions nervously. "Dude, that's amazing," said Mark, a dad of two, excitement dancing in his eyes. "Men need a space like that. We all have our stuff we're dealing with. Sometimes it feels like we're expected to have everything figured out." Jake felt a surge of validation. The conversation swelled as more shared their struggles, fears, and moments of vulnerability. They spoke of the disconnected nature of modern fatherhood, grappling with roles that felt heavier than before. "Just make sure you're honest," Mark advised, gripping his beer tightly. "Let them know it's okay to not have all the answers." The night crystallized Jake's mission. This wasn't merely a workshop. It was an opportunity to stitch together a semblance of community, fostering an environment where taboo topics could flourish. After that night, each time Jake returned to his workshop, he felt emboldened. The auto grease that usually coated his hands now merged with scribbles of potential dialogues and activities. Yet, each triumph came laced with concern about how to present himself in this new light. As days turned into weeks, Jake faced a new challenge. Doubts began to surface around the practicality of sharing his own past hardships. What if revealing his own vulnerabilities opened a door to judgment? Each time he thought about showing that side of himself, a wave of nausea washed over him. Authenticity cuts through pretense, he reminded himself, echoing Claire's words. Her tone had resonated deep within him, and now, it felt like a lifeline. But even with that mantra, the thought of standing on that metaphorical cliff loomed. Jake rapidly scribbled notes while pacing his garage, these notes bridging a growing chasm of fear. The looming workshop was just days away, yet here he stood at the end of a dark corridor, staring into the unknown. Would he have the courage to take the leap? Or would he falter at the precipice, remaining tethered to his old self? But even amidst the pulsating fear, a renewed sense of self began to unfurl within him. He thought back to the fathers in his life, those fleeting conversations woven with golden threads of hope. They were waiting. The moment approached where he would have to leap, and with it, he felt the winds of change urging him forward. Jake knew that it wasn't about proving himself, it was about belonging. Yet, standing at that threshold, he wrestled with a dawning realization: vulnerability was not his enemy but his ally. As he took a deep breath, preparing to confront the workshop's challenges, a deafening silence enveloped the room. Suddenly, his phone rang, interrupting the stillness. It was an unexpected call from Claire. "Jake, can we talk? There's something important I need to discuss." Panic bubbled within him. What could be so urgent? As he sat with the stark reality of possibilities unfolding, he realized he might soon have to navigate a hurdle far more significant than he had anticipated. Jake leaned against the workbench, his heart pounding in rhythm with the drone of uncertainty thumping within him. The chirp of his phone had ushered in a flood of what-ifs. Claire had always been an anchor in turbulent seas, but now, her request screamed that something urgent was brewing. "Sure, Claire. What's up?" he managed to reply, maintaining a facade of calmness as he swiped to answer. In the quiet of his garage, the mere act of engaging felt monumental, and he could almost taste the mix of anxiety and anticipation in the air. "Jake, I need your help with something personal," she said, her voice tinged with a seriousness he hadn't encountered before. "It's about a project at work, and I can't seem to figure it out. Can we meet?" He paused, feeling the weight of the uncertainty creep back in. Was she about to ask him for advice on something work-related, or was there more beneath the surface? He knew that her job as a CEO came with overwhelming responsibilities, a world he was not entirely familiar with. Diving into her realm felt daunting. "Of course. When? So, how about now? I can swing by your place in 15? The quickness of the request nearly knocked the breath from his lungs. Still, he realized this was the moment another shift in the landscape of his life. "Okay," he replied, barely able to mask his surprise. As he hung up, Jake felt the familiar tremors of self-doubt surge, overriding his exhilaration. Could he really navigate the complexities of Claire's world? As he looked around at the clutter of his garage, he saw the remnants of his workshop in progress, a sanctuary. But could he juggle that space with an impending tete-a-tete of emotional weight? When Claire arrived, her demeanor mirrored the urgency of their conversation. The door barely closed behind her before she spoke. "I've been feeling stretched too thin lately, and I have an opportunity, but I need a sounding board. I don't want to tread into unfamiliar territory alone. You've always had a strong intuition. I value your perspective." Jake listened, but a gnawing insecurity whispered doubts in his ear. Who was he to advise someone with a prestigious title? But as he focused on her sincerity, he felt a flicker of resolve. Maybe this was the juncture between their worlds, each requiring a mix of vulnerability and strength. "What kind of opportunity?" he prompted, hoping to shift from his uncertainty. Claire explained that an event was happening soon, one that could launch an innovative product line her company had been developing. They were integrating stories into their marketing, intending to humanize the brand. "But it's tricky. I want it to resonate with people's lives, not just numbers and sales," she said, her frustration palpable. Emboldened by her vulnerability, Jake decided to share his insights on connection through storytelling. People need to feel understood, not just informed. What if you included real stories from customers? Highlight how the product changed lives? His suggestion landed softly, like a stepping stone toward opening a richer dialogue. Claire's eyes lit up, and he could sense a shift in the tone of the room. "That's it. We could find ways to make it relatable. It's about more than just selling." They brainstormed intensely, shifting from corporate jargon to raw sentiment, with every idea gained momentum in the very air around them. In that fertile space of collaboration, Jake found himself adapting and growing. He offered perspectives he hadn't previously known existed within him, a dash of insight, a sprinkle of creativity, and suddenly, the thought of his own workshop didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a thread tied to this vibrant tapestry they were weaving together. But with the glow of empowerment came a flash of unease. Here he was, unraveling layers of his capability alongside someone esteemed, inching ever closer to his own approach to authenticity. How would he use this experience as fuel for his workshop? When Claire stood to leave, she thanked him profusely, her excitement radiating. "You have a gift, Jake. I wish you'd see it more clearly." Her words hung in the air, prickling the edges of his awareness. As the door closed behind her, Jake ran a hand through his hair, absorbing the depth of their conversation. Exhilaration twirled with fear, and he recognized an undeniable pull toward transformation. A flicker of clarity emerged, but it was tainted with uncertainty. What next? The shadows of self-doubt loomed ahead, intertwining with the bold path he was trying to forge. As he returned to his garage, anxiety mounted. The workshop deadline was looming, but with newfound clarity on the importance of narrative, he realized he stood on the brink of something pivotal. Would he have the courage to share his own stories, embracing both humility and strength? Suddenly, his phone buzzed again, this time a notification that made his heart race. A reminder of the workshop date. The moment loomed closer, and with it came an inescapable question: would he bring his authentic self into the light, or hide within the shadows of doubt. With a gust of determination, he pressed his palm against the workbench, resolve rekindling. It was time to confront the truth that was waiting. Would he rise to the occasion or retreat into safety once more? The hourglass was running thin, and action called. Jake settled into the familiar rhythms of the workshop, yet each step felt elevated, charged with the knowledge that he was edging ever closer to an authentic self. The scattered tools and half-finished projects whispered potential. They were the residual echoes of his creativity. As he surveyed the disarray, a tough but exhilarating choice lay ahead. He focused on the workshop's impending deadline, reviewing the notes he had drafted during his brainstorming session with Claire. A nervous energy thrummed beneath his skin. Each word he jotted down felt like an exposed nerve. He questioned his capacity to foster genuine stories, to express the emotion that connected humans in a way products simply could not. But Jake knew the stories littered within his life, conversations with customers shared in breathless abandon, moments of laughter, heartache, and rebirth. Each interaction was a thread, and somehow, he could weave them into something larger. Remember, he murmured to himself, people crave connection. Could he really pull from his own experiences in a way that showcased vulnerability without tarnishing his image? He took a deep breath, the smell of oil and metal filling his lungs like an invigorating balm, and grabbed a nearby sketchpad. This was a territory of expression he understood well, and in that warmth, he felt a flicker of his voice rise, tentative yet bold. The first sticky note he wrote was simple: my workshop more than mechanics. As he pieced together a narrative, he hesitated. Should he include the challenges of single fatherhood? How raw could he be? Many would regard vulnerabilities as weaknesses. Reinforced by Claire's words earlier, Jake wrestled with the idea that perhaps these vulnerabilities were instead his greatest strengths in storytelling. But what if they judge? The little voice of doubt chimed in. And yet, the counterpoint, the burgeoning confidence within him said, what if they relate? What if that opens doors? This duality engulfed him, spilling over into the time he spent drafting his first workshop presentation. The title leaped from his mind, crafting connections through real stories. With each stroke of the pen, clarity pierced the fog of uncertainty. The essence of sharing his reality began to anchor amidst his swirling thoughts. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting an amber hue that seeped through the workshop windows, its warmth contrasting the chill that gripped his heart. Jake picked up old customer testimonials. Each scrap of paper had a unique essence that shaped his journey. Marlene's old tale of perseverance, as she rebuilt her family after loss, answered the call of his own longing. It was a narrative of survival and connection, one that others could certainly relate to, perhaps even trust. In that moment of inspiration, his phone dinged a text from Claire. The message was brief yet charged with urgency. Jake, could we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to discuss with you about the project. His heart raced. The natural world of uncertainty and excitement intertwined tightly. As Jake processed her request, the question struck him sharper than before. What was at stake here? She seemed to see something in him he had yet to acknowledge. Was it his story? His inherent knack for understanding? With a decisive resolve, he texted back, agreeing to meet, but his mind danced around the implications. Could he share the core of his life, the solace of fatherhood, the sacrifices, the triumphs and chaos to ground his message? Yet as the time for his workshop loomed, Jake was struck by another thought. Was this merely a path for personal growth, or was there a larger purpose in sharing? The possibility of connecting with others through his narrative filled him with both exhilaration and fear. In the depths of his mind, he wondered, could he unravel the thread of his story amongst the tapestry of Claire's corporate designs? Would this connection make them both stronger? As he prepared for bed that evening, he felt a surge of adrenaline. In navigating this path alongside a woman of influence, perhaps he was positioning himself not just as a man in the shadows, but as a voice worth honoring. Sleep eluded him, his thoughts spun wildly. Was he losing grip on his identity, or finally beginning to grasp it? Determined, he invoked a promise to himself. He would speak, he would share, even if it meant stepping off the precipice of comfort into realms unknown. And with that promise, dawn began to break. What awaited him on the other side? The question loomed larger than ever as he prepared to face the day. Would he leap into the unknown or remain tethered to the safety of silence? The morning sun found Jake perched on the edge of his workshop's workbench, its warm rays creeping through the dusty glass, illuminating the scattered tools in a soft glow. He clenched the edges of the work surface, his heart pounding to a rhythm that felt both foreign and exhilarating. Each minute that passed in the silence of the workshop only heightened his anticipation for the meeting with Claire. Looking around, he took in the contemplative chaos he had curated: half-assembled benches, jars filled with screws, and blueprints pinned to the wall like shadows of his thoughts. It was this space that had birthed his understanding of connection, where metal met intention and designs transformed from mere sketches into tangible artifacts. Yet today, it felt as if he was standing at a crossroads where the craftsmanship he adored was clangorously intertwined with the raw truths of his life. "Time to face the music," he uttered under his breath, pushing off the bench. With every step toward the door, he felt a sudden rush of doubt. Was he truly ready to open himself up, not just to Claire, but to the wider world waiting beyond this workshop? What if his narrative didn't resonate? What if the very essence of his story rendered him vulnerable and weak in the eyes of those listening? As he approached his car, a practical tool for both fatherhood and work, the day's possibilities crystallized. The moment he slid into the driver's seat, he picked up his phone, contemplating the words he should express to Claire. Just a week ago, he had been a simple mechanic, focused on repairs and diagnostics. Today, those connections he craved seemed to morph into a calling, beckoning him to harness his experiences into something more. Morning traffic was a fluid dance of commuters, and Jake maneuvered among the cars, his mind replaying potential conversations with Claire. He envisioned her as the polished professional, seamlessly articulating her vision, while he stood there with his heart laid bare, offering raw accounts that could shatter the monochrome walls of corporate presentation. Would she see value in the chaos of his life? "Hold it together," he murmured, recalling the strength of his customers, their narratives of trial and resilience that drove him forward. If they could overcome their struggles, perhaps sharing his own wouldn't seem so daunting. Clenching the steering wheel, he reminded himself, "This isn't just about you, Jake. It's about collaborating to create something impactful." With renewed determination, Jake parked his car, the smell of pavement warmed by sunlight swirling in with the anticipation of what lay ahead. As he entered the cafe where they agreed to meet, the rush of patrons around him felt strangely like the heartbeat of the city, an orchestra of hidden stories ready to be told. Claire was already seated, reviewing her notes, her focus intense yet fluid. A brief smile crossed her face when she spotted him, one that was both welcoming and professional. "Thanks for meeting with me," she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. "I've been thinking about how we can combine our strengths for the presentation." Jake nodded, his stomach twisting. Feeling the weight of the moment, he hesitated but knew it was now or never. "I've been working on my part, to it'll be about more than just mechanics. It's personal." Claire leaned in, genuine interest igniting her features. "That sounds interesting. What angle are you taking?" This was the moment he had prepared for. Redirecting the doubts that always threatened to derail him, he let the words flow, stories of customers who had become friends, moments of triumph amidst chaos, and most importantly, the profound journey of single fatherhood that had shaped his identity. The conversation blossomed, each exchanged word weaving threads of understanding and respect between them. Claire listened intently, her gaze unwavering, and Jake felt the barriers of fear begin to dissolve. More than once, their thoughts aligned in synergy, each idea sparking vivid imagery in their minds. But just as he thought the conversation was flowing seamlessly, a flicker of tension surged within him. He felt the raw vulnerability expand inside, battling his instinct to retreat. The question lurked in the back of his mind: could he trust her with the deeper truths? As they discussed potential workshop themes, an unexpected notion crossed his mind. What if it's not only about mechanics? What if I drew on my experiences as a father? The lessons I learned when it came to building connections and resilience? Claire's eyes lit up at the idea. That could resonate deeply. "I think people will appreciate not just the mechanics, "But the humanity behind it," she replied enthusiastically. Yet within Jake, a thread of turmoil remained. Could he truly cross that line? What if revealing too much stripped away the industrious facade he had built for so long? The rest of their meeting was a whirlwind of ideas, yet a murmur of uncertainty lingered. As they parted ways, Claire's parting words hovered in the air like a promise. "You have so much to offer, Jake. Don't be afraid to let that story flow." With her encouragement echoing in his mind, Jake stepped back into his car, the reality of his choice dawning upon him. He was teetering on the edge of personal revelation, but was he ready to leap? Finally, he asked himself, what would it take for him to shed the armor he wore in favor of authenticity? Would the collaborative effort with Claire shatter his self-imposed barriers? Or would he find himself ensnared in the very vulnerability he feared? The anticipation weighed heavily within him. The stakes were high for both personal and professional growth, but perhaps the real leap was only beginning. What awaited him next? Jake's mind raced as he drove home, the city lights dwindling in the rearview mirror like remnants of his former self. Each red brake light flickering seemed to amplify the decision he was grappling with, one that felt monumental. How could he capture the essence of his life, the highs and lows of fatherhood, and still maintain his reputation as a competent mechanic? The workshop loomed ahead, a familiar fortress that shielded him from exposure. Yet that very sanctuary was also the place where the transformation was most palpable, where cold metal had the potential to warm into connection. He parked and stepped into the workshop, a deep sigh escaping his lips as the door creaked shut behind him. The chaos he had embraced felt now less like a collection of projects, and more like a canvas waiting for a story. As if guided by an unseen force, he moved toward his workbench. Taking a seat, he gazed at the tools: a wrench, a hammer, the various implements of his trade, each carried memories of labor and triumph. But this time, they didn't feel burdensome. Instead, they became symbols of potential stories, waiting to be told. What if I revealed the heart behind the steel? He thought, running a finger along the edge of a half-finished bench. The tension grew within him, swirling with excitement and fear. This concept of blending personal experiences into his work felt both liberating and terrifying. He grabbed a notebook, its pages crisp and untouched. Here, he could sketch not just blueprints, but fragments of his life, the adventures shared with his sons, the lessons etched in the fabric of daily struggles. The thought ignited a spark within, compelling him to explore deeper dimensions of his identity. The first words flowed awkwardly, as if he were carving stone instead of writing. Being a single father taught me how to communicate, how to listen, as well as how to fix broken things. He paused, realizing how the metaphor extended beyond machinery. Was he ready to dismantle the polished facade and expose the fears behind his vulnerabilities? As he continued scribbling, portraits of fatherhood began to dance across the page. He could describe the weight of responsibility manifested in late nights spent repairing the last of the family car while his children slept, how each rotation of the wrench was a vow to provide, to protect, to love. But a nagging voice in his subconscious urged caution. What if they don't relate? What if they only see you as a mechanic? Each time he tried to paint a scene that mixed reality with emotion, the critic inside him echoed that he wasn't qualified to share these stories. Layering fatherhood over a technical presentation felt like reaching too far into unknown territory. Yet as he stared at the words forming spirals on the page, he felt an unfamiliar flicker of resolve. In stepping beyond the confines of mechanics, perhaps he could invite an audience into a dialogue, a narrative about the strength and vulnerability that his life had taught him. The night wore on, darkness enveloping the workshop as he continued to write, the hum of the world outside fading into silence. Armed now with a concept, Jake determined to wield it with purpose. The fabric of his life, intertwined with metal and grease, could shape a presentation that resonated more powerfully than any data set or marketing strategy could. Exhausted but invigorated, he reluctantly put the notebook aside, knowing the dawn was inexorably approaching. The shadows of self-doubt loomed still, but they felt distinctly less oppressive now. Behind every challenge lay an opportunity for growth this time. It was his opportunity to not just fix things, but to connect on a deeper level. But as the adrenaline of possibility began to lull him into a sense of security, Another question emerged, echoing louder than before. Was he truly ready to be raw and real in front of others? As he flicked off the lights and stepped out, the weight of both fear and hope settled on his shoulders. The outside world, with all its unpredictability, awaited him. Meeting Claire had opened a door, and an undeniable pull urged him to push through, yet what awaited on the other side remained an enigma. Maybe it was time for more than just technical expertise to define him. The journey towards being authentic loomed large, stretching ahead full of uncertainties. Could he ultimately triumph over the inner critic? What truths lay nestled within that needed to be unearthed? The world outside hummed with life, but Jake's own internal journey had just begun. With every step he took into this new chapter, the need for courage and vulnerability echoed forcefully within, promising change would soon demand its due. And that was just the beginning of an unexpected, transformative adventure. The day had arrived. Jake stood at the threshold of his workshop, heart pounding as he adjusted the collar of his worn shirt. Today was not just another day spent repairing engines. Today was about opening up a step toward redefining not only who he was as a mechanic but as a single father, and a man willing to be vulnerable. As he took a deep breath, he recalled the countless nights spent in this space, surrounded by grease and metal, finding solace in the familiar routines. But today was different. Today, he was prepared to share the lessons etched into his life, shaped by challenges and victories alike. With a glance in the mirror, Jake affirmed his commitment. "This is about more than mechanics," he murmured, the words steadying his resolve. The workshop was prepped, the whiteboard filled with ideas, and the chairs neatly arranged as he waited for the participants to arrive. The space buzzed with potential. As fathers began trickling in, Jake felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Their tentative smiles mirrored his own insecurities, but he recognized something significant was beginning to unfold: the chance to create a community that thrived on honesty and shared experiences. "Thank you all for coming," Jake began, microphone in hand. Instinctively, he scanned the room for faces that reflected his own uncertainties. "Today isn't just about fixing cars. It's about connecting, learning from one another, sharing stories about who we are as fathers." He launched into the narrative of his own journey: the sleepless nights, the laughter shared while tinkering with toys, and the raw, unrefined struggles of being a single dad. Each story unraveled threads of vulnerability in the room, uniting them under a bond of authenticity. As Jake opened up about his fears and triumphs, he could see the weight lift from the other father's shoulders, as murmurs of understanding rippled through the audience. He witnessed nods, smiles, and tears, each reaction solidifying his sense of purpose. The workshop soon transformed from a mere presentation into a heartfelt conversation. Men began sharing their own experiences, talking about the pressures they faced and the moments of doubt that haunted them. With every story exchanged, Jake felt a surge of confidence and new belief blossoming within him. This collective honesty infused the workshop with energy that surpassed anything he had envisioned. After a particularly heartfelt anecdote about a father's struggle with being there for his children while managing a demanding job, Jake decided to introduce a hands-on activity. "Let us break into small groups," he suggested. "Let us brainstorm how we can support each other in nurturing what matters most, our children." As they fanned out, conversations turned into collaborative brainstorming sessions, and laughter filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. Ideas for community events, mentoring opportunities, and shared experiences began to take form, and Jake felt the exhilarating rush of purpose guide his every thought. By the time the workshop wrapped up, Jake stood before a group of men. In this time, the air was thick with camaraderie rather than insecurity. They had all opened up, challenging the usual macho ideals that sought to bury their emotions. "Thank you," one father with a hesitant smile spoke, "for creating a space that made it okay to be real." In that moment, Jake realized how much he had transformed. Not merely as a mechanic, but as a man committed to fostering connections that mattered. His shoulders felt lighter, his heart fuller. He had shed the weight of fear in exchange for the boldness of authenticity. Days turned into weeks, and with Claire's ongoing encouragement, Jake expanded his workshop into a recurring community initiative. Together, they shared stories and held discussions, fostering narratives that celebrated both fatherhood and vulnerability. The recognition he had sought in his work as a mechanic gradually shifted. He had not merely achieved a goal, he had conquered the fear that had bound him. The faces that had begun as strangers were now familiar allies in a world that felt rejuvenated by honest conversations. As Mia watched him engage, the pride in her eyes melted away the last remnants of doubt Jake had ever harbored. He was not just providing a future for her, he was crafting a legacy of courage and connection that would resonate far beyond the walls of his workshop. Jake stepped outside into the warm afternoon sun, a man transformed, a community-esque inspiration. The doubts that had once clouded his path had dissipated, revealing an undeniable clarity. Authenticity and vulnerability were not weaknesses but strengths that anchored them all. This was not just a conclusion. It was a new beginning. The time for sharing had come. If you believe in the power of personal transformation, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss another heart-stirring story. Leave a like now to ensure these powerful narratives reach those who need them most. Comment below and share your thoughts about Jake's journey. How has it inspired your own path? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from a little light in their lives. Together, let us continue to build a community grounded in authenticity.